Right. Cool. It looks like we are now live on Facebook. And yeah, so hey guys, hey Facebook world and everyone else. Um, I'm Nirupam from the underwater photography guide, Bluewater Photo, Bluewater Travel. And I've got the Bluewater Photo team here, including Mark Strickland, Henry Pedroso, and Wayne Tarr. Now, it's just going to show my face, so you guys waving probably won't see you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and tell the folks what you do at Blue Water. We can start with
Well,
Wayne.
me? I start?
Sure, Henry can start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So my name is Henry. Actually, it's Henrik. But yeah, I'm known by Henry. I have been with Blue Water for 7 months, I believe. I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm working in Blue Water as a sales consultant and helping you guys to find the right gear. Yeah, and also I'm a free diver and scuba dive instructor. So yeah, that's me. Wayne?
Awesome. Thanks, Henry. Yeah, my name's Wayne, and I've been with Blue Water for over a year now. I'm working the sales, so I can help with any of your photographic or scuba gear requirements. I'm a South African, as you might tell from the accent. And yeah, so if you need anything from us, please don't hesitate to reach out. Go, Mark.
Hi, my name is Mark Strickland, and I've actually been with Blue Water since the very beginning, back in 2010. I am also on the sales side of things, so I have a lot of experience not only diving all different parts of the world, but taking pictures underwater since way back in the film days. But I also very much appreciate all the advantages of modern photographic gear. So I'm very happy to help you with any of your photographic or dive travel or dive gear needs.
cool. Thanks, Mark. So, yeah, this is kind of a new concept for us. We're workshopping it, so this is our first time doing it. It's kind of like a podcast, uh, video cast style situation. And normally we would do this on the Blue Water Photo Facebook Live, but we had some technical difficulties, so now we're on Blue Water Travels. That's fine because we're actually going to be talking about one of our workshops that we just did in Fiji. And what I wanted to do was introduce new concepts every week that we can just casually talk about, just as a team, just among as much as we are professionals, we're also hobbyists, and we like the hobby, and so it's more of a casual conversation about what's new in underwater photography and what's cool and what's out there. So today we picked a pretty interesting topic, and this has been a topic that we've been begging underwater photography gear manufacturers for the last maybe 3-4 years, and that is basically a concept where you can have a professional grade camera with a kit lens and wet lenses that you can use with it. Now, there's manufacturers out there like Nauticam, Marilux, that do have that option, but there hasn't really been anything affordable, very affordable for some time. I would say since Fantasy really had the popular A6400 system that was out maybe that was like 2018, I think, Mark.
All right.
Yeah, so that was out a while ago, and since then, after COVID, things really haven't picked up in that market, and it finally has. And we've been working with Ikelite for the last year to produce a new housing for the Sony A6700. That's an APS-C crop sensor mirrorless camera with professional grade image quality that works with a kit lens and then wide angle and macro wet lenses. So that's a pretty neat combination there because you can shoot wide angle, mid-range photography, and macro all on the same dive. So yeah, I thought I would show everybody some of my images. Before I do though, yeah, do you guys have any comments on the system? I mean, Mark, why is it that you've been asking Ikelite to produce something like this for so long?
Yeah, well, thanks, Nirupam. And indeed, I am very enthusiastic about this whole approach to underwater photography. And I think it's something that will resonate not only with new shooters, but those especially who maybe are migrating from some of the more modest compact systems, because this approach is very common with the compact systems, and many people have gotten used to the luxury of having that kind of versatility. And there's a lot to be said for it, because I think one of the best aspects of diving is the kind of the unpredictable nature, that you never know exactly what kind of creature you may encounter. You may have a pretty good idea based on where you're diving in the world, but you never know. Even places that are known for big animals might also have beautiful nudibranchs or nice scenery, or you never know exactly what you may encounter in the way of subject matter. And really, there is no one lens that can do a great job with all subjects, large and small. So rather than the approach that's been kind of the standard in the past for the more higher end quality systems that requires the photographer to kind of anticipate and choose in advance before you ever get in the water, set up your equipment for either wide angle or macro, and then dedicate the dive to just that type of photography. Well, that's fine if you come across just those kind of subjects, but it can be pretty frustrating if you're all set up for wide angle and you come across a stunning nudibranch, or vice versa if you're all set up with a macro lens, and the classic example is then a whale shark swims up. Well, what can you really photograph? You can't do a good job of the whole animal. You can photograph its eyeball, but otherwise it can be frustrating. And there's no reason that you have to be limited to just one type of underwater photography with these kind of systems, because for the first time now, it's possible with a high quality, higher end system to have the choice at an affordable price point to be able to switch readily back and forth between. Really, it's like having three different lenses on the same dive, being wide angle, macro, and normal. And they're each really are distinct categories. The wide angle is the best choice for reef scenery or shipwrecks or shots that include divers and things like that. Macro, of course, for the smaller creatures like nudibranchs and crabs and shrimp and small shy fish. But there's also a lot to be said for the normal focal lengths, which is typical of just the kit lens by itself, for fish portraits of a medium-sized fish and anything up to maybe the size of a small turtle or something like that, or a large moray eel. So there's most healthy reefs have subject matter for each of those different categories of lenses. And so to me, it's very exciting that we now have the ability to switch back and forth and do justice to whichever kind of subject you happen to come across.
So, I think as a Sony shooter, you could probably relate most, Wayne. One of the downsides of Sony cameras, and why it's so great that this is for a Sony camera in particular, is the Sony doesn't really have a good dedicated fisheye. You could use a Plakina 10-17 EF with a Metabones adapter, but then the focus is not very good. So this is allowing you to have a really nice wide angle, almost fisheye system with these wet lenses, and have an alternative for that. But when I believe you shoot the A7C2 or A7CR, is that correct?
Yeah, I got the A7CR, also in the Ikelite DLM housing. So it's a much the same size system as what the A6700 is. And they're fantastic. And that's one of the things that I was going to put forward about this, is the compact nature of the whole system. It's really cool. And to have that ability, as I think Mark covered it very, very well, is that to be able to shoot that wide angle, to be able to shoot that macro on the same dive, or even if you on a liveaboard or you're doing multiple dives in a day, if you want to select macro on the one dive, wide angle on the other dive with a normal system, it means changing ports, changing over, revacuuming your system. Whereas with this system, you don't have all that hassle. It's fantastic. As you say, the range that you're getting with the wide angle is amazing. The ability that you got with the macro is amazing. So you've got the best of both worlds and in between. So yeah, I reckon it's the way to go.
So let me see here. So I can share some of the photos I got on a recent workshop to Fiji. And when I was doing that, I was basically taking the prototype that Ikelite had given me. And at that time, it was not a full-fledged prototype, I would say. So the reason that it needs a prototype is like this lens is fixed, right? And actually, why don't I show you what I'm talking about here? So the lens isn't really supposed to come off. It's not the kind of housing that you would get so that you can switch ports and lenses all the time. This is, a port that fits on all the time, and then you've got the 16-50 kit lens on it. We can, as dealers, remove that lens if you ever do, or that port, if you ever do want to convert it to something where you can switch ports. So you can still get the housing if you want to upgrade lenses in the future. But what's cool about it is there's no zoom knob. What you do is you actually custom set the buttons on the camera so that you can zoom in and out because the lens is a power zoom lens. So when I was taking this in Fiji, I didn't need a zoom gear or anything like that. But what the issue was at the time was the port was a little bit too small. So my camera would actually hit the port and it would turn off because it'd be like, oh, lens obstruction and turn off. So in order for me to actually turn on my camera, I would have to shake it and put it upside down. Um, and then if I would turn it on while I was shaking it, and then it would actually be able to go up without hitting the port, and then I could use it the rest of the dive. That doesn't happen anymore. Ikelite adjust so that you can shoot all the time. But that's just one little aside. So I was shooting with a prototype, but you can see the image quality in the photos. Now, what I wanted to explain about the system is, yeah, you have this port, and then you've got really two options, two bulkhead options. You have a sync cord bulkhead option, which lets you use Ikelite TTL, and that's what I was doing in my photography. But then you also have a bulkhead option that lets you use fiber optic cables. So if you have CNC strobes or other types of strobes, you can do that, and that's pretty cool. But you can see, like, affordability wise, this is 1650 for the deluxe, or 1690 for the deluxe package, which includes a vacuum and tray and everything. Some of the competing anodized aluminum brands that they will still allow you to have this system, but they're more in the $3,000 range. So people that are typically getting this crop sensor camera, they're looking for value for money for, you know, best image quality per dollar. And this is really it. I mean, out of that kind of entry level high end systems, the having one lens really allows you to do that, especially because the wet lens options are more affordable. So let me go ahead and share the photos. Anike, do you have
Just
any? Yeah.
sorry, Nirupam, as you were just saying about fitting it in the housing with that that port that is fixed.
Yeah.
It's another one of the big positives about this is that you can slide your camera in there with the lens on. You don't have to worry about a zoom gear. Your camera can be fully assembled and slide it into the housing. So you don't have the situation where you need to pop the lens on after you put the camera in and then pop your ports on top of that.
Yeah.
So that's another big plus with this.
Yeah, that's true. Once you set it up, it's basically in there. And Ikelite and Nauticam both have a data transfer cable, which allows you to charge your camera in the housing. So you can actually charge it between dives while you're using it. And that's a super cool feature. That means you never have to take the camera out because you can also plug it in to download your images. And that's what I was doing with the Sony A1 on my last trip to Socorro. And you can do the same thing with this system. Now, this is my only photo that I'm showing that I didn't edit. I didn't have time to edit, but I realized, hey, I don't actually have a photo of this system. So it's a little dark, but you can see just how compact it is and how it looks. You basically got this fantasy wet lens here. You can use an Enon wet lens, fantasy wet lens. You can just contact us if you're looking for lens recommendations. You can send us a DM here or send us an email at sales@bluewaterphotostore.com. And then you can see it's just on that flat port and it's pretty easy to take on and off. I was using a bayonet system, which means that you can actually put the lens onto the bayonet system, quarter turn, and it'll snap right in, which makes it really easy to burp it because you do need to actually take the lens off in your first few minutes underwater and burp it so that all the air comes out. And let me see here. Yeah, I think these were my first images with that system. So we took a group of about 25 divers to Fiji. It was our GoPro and underwater photo workshop. And I spent about half my time in Fiji shooting the A6700 and half my time shooting the A7C2, which is basically like Wayne is shooting the full frame version of the A6700. It's about the same size, same housing size, but it's one step up. And the A7C2, it doesn't have this option yet. So a little less versatile when you're actually diving with it. But in that case, I was using a Canon fisheye. But this is all shot with the Fantasy UWL-09F with the kit lens. And yeah. Oh, were you guys not able to see that?
We were.
Yeah, we
I
could see
was,
it.
yeah.
Oh, you saw the photos? Cool.
Yeah.
Let me pull that back up. It got a little confused. Here we go. Okay, almost there. Enike, do you have any comments or questions about it?
No, not yet. I think it's all covered, like all my thoughts, but something will come eventually. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's more about the connectivity with the strobes that I would like to know more about, like all the
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. So, and I'll show you guys what that TTL looks like in a couple of photos here. I might actually have a version of this photo that no, yeah, okay. These are all just topside photos with the 6700. What I thought was pretty cool is like when we were on these safety stops, I actually popped the camera open even on this tiny boat, and I took the camera out because the camera's so small, and I held it over my head. There's no way to get off the boat except walk in the water, but I still felt comfortable enough because the system was so small. I could just carry the camera over my head. Um, and I took a lot of above water photos, so I'll get through those because they don't really show the versatility of the system. But it is a good camera. You can see the uh, dynamic range is pretty good, especially with the details in the shadows I was able to recover in these photos.
Yeah, on that note, Nirupam, on top side, with
Yeah,
the camera in the housing, without the wet lenses on, just through the flat port,
yeah,
you can use it as a standard camera as well. So that you have that
exactly.
option where you wouldn't have that if you had a dome or a macro lens setup.
Yeah, had I not just gone diving with the housing, I could have just kept my camera in the housing and taken photos just like this. This is with
Yeah.
the same 16 to 50 kit lens. So it's a nice versatile lens for above water shooting too. Um, and we're almost underwater. Oh, there's our group.
What part of Fiji are we looking at there on the beach?
That's Becca Lagoon. So that's where the sharks are. And I think I've got a shark photo in here coming up. Uh, but we were at Wide Roca Resort, which we also booked. So if you guys are interested in doing the shark dive, but this was my favorite shark shot, and I wanted to show this one because look at the dynamic range here. I mean, you can see so much detail, um, all the way from the highlights to the shadows. You're not like getting this hard contrast, but you can actually see a lot of it. And Hinke, you were asking about strobe options. Well, in this case, I was using Ikelite DS230 strobes. And Ikelite strobes tend to have the best TTL in the market because they have an electronic connection. And I was using my Ikelite sync cords. So I wasn't using fiber optics. I was using the Ikelite TTL converter. And with the combination of all that, if you put your camera in spot metering, Sony is particularly good about TTL because spot metering for Sony means it takes the focus point of your image and it uses that to meter. So my camera saw the focus point and then it was like it told the strobes basically, hey, this is what you need to expose. And it exposed it perfectly. So it works great with sharks and blue water. It really does. I mean, there's no blowout. It's really soft, even lighting, and I wasn't using any diffusers at all for the shot.
Speaking of TTL, Nirupam, another advantage in terms of just cost for this system that is unique among underwater camera systems, as far as I know, is that you do not have to spend an additional $400 for a separate external TTL converter because it is built into the electronics in the housing.
That's a great point. So when I was using the system as a prototype, I actually had an external converter. But yeah, now it does come with an internal TTL converter. Now that's the sync cord version of the housing. The fiber optic version does not. However, if you do have other strobes and you still want to use sync cords, highly encourage it. It works great. All you have to do is unplug the TTL converter inside the housing, and then you don't have any issues with circuitry. So that is kind of an interesting side note. Um, Now these are the macro shots that I got with it, the only two macro shots. I should have taken a lot more. But to be honest, Fiji's just too pretty to take macro. So I took my two shots so people could see what it could do. It's a great camera. I think the details are great. I wasn't trying very hard, so I'm sure you can do better than what I just did. Um,
When you
but
say macro, Nirupam, though, I think you mean using just the kit lens by itself. Is that right?
it's likely the kit lens by itself. I actually don't remember if I had a diopter on there or not.
Well, I don't think you would be able to get these kind of fish shots with a diopter, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, maybe a +7, but even then, I don't think so. So
Which does raise one point.
yeah,
No one system can do it all necessarily.
yeah,
This system is actually capable of doing
Everything.
great tight macro shots of even very small shy fish, but not as configured right off the shelf. So
yeah,
earlier in the talk, you had mentioned, Nirupam, about the possibility of switching to a different port. And I
yeah.
think that would be necessary if you wanted to use something like the Sony 90 macro, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. If you want the Sony 90 and you're really a macro shooter, I recommend just getting the housing, and I think a good wide angle would be the 16 to 35. If you're going with Ikelite, you could also do the yeah, that would still probably be my wide angle of choice. It is nice having the wet lens option, um, but you can still get really good macro with a wet lens with a kit lens. You're just not going to get quite the same minimum focusing distance. And what that means is you have to be a lot closer to get the same kind of macro than you would with the Sony 90. So with the Sony 90, it's easier to sneak up on subjects. It's a little bit harder with this. Uh, so that's kind of one of the bigger downsides. You also get a little more depth of field, I think, with the Sony 90, just because it's not a wet lens that you're stacking on top. That said, the Bluewater Plus 7 is $137 right now. So, it's not much to add on to the system, and you're looking at a much different cost. The Sony 90 being like, what is that, $900 or $1,000?
Yeah, 995.
995. Yeah, I mean sometimes they have rebates too. So yeah, always have those. But back to the wide angle photography. I tried doing some sunburst shots so you can see how the details are. There's a little bit of ghosting here, but really it's not bad. Like a little bit of diffraction, but I mean, comparatively, you're getting great detail in the surface with the waves. You can see the diver, and I think the colors came out great. One thing that was always frustrating with Sony was even though you can color correct for white balance in Lightroom, white balance was just never quite right. Even in the raw files, right? It just seemed a little bit off. Maybe it had a greenish tint. Um, Sony's fixed that, and their camera now is I mean, the colors are incredible, as you can see here. One of the cool things about the Ikelite strobes is that they're a little bit warmer, right? So when you get that warm look in your wide angle photography, what do you do when you're correcting in Lightroom? Do you guys know?
Cool it
No?
down.
You cool it down, right? And what happens to your watercolor?
Yeah, you get nicer blues.
Exactly. So, having these Ikelite strobes and having a little bit warmer light, you end up getting nicer blues because you get this nice warm image and you cool that down and you get like really nice blues in the background. So that's why I love shooting Ikelites, especially uh, in the tropics, right? Where it is blue water. I find that warmer colors look better in the tropics than they do in cold water. But the DS230s are right in the perfect spot because they're a little bit cooler than some of the older Ikelite strobes as well. This is probably my favorite shot I took with this system. For one, it can show you what the camera and housing can do. But two, it's just incredible how much life there is in Fiji.
This is why I love Fiji
Wow.
diving
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing.
It's a whole universe, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's just the fireworks of fish. And here you go. Like here's your corners. You can see just how sharp these wet water contact optics are. Who wants to explain water contact optics to the group? Because I think it's important to really show like and talk about, what are these wet lenses doing to our image quality? Like why are we bothering using a kit lens when we could just have a nice, high-end lens on here?
I think Mark could do the justice on
Well,
this one.
I can't really speak to the technical, optical side of it so much as just the results, what you get,
Yeah.
the rewards for shooting with water contact optics. And this is as opposed to lenses that may be very high quality, sharp lenses, but they're still designed for above water use. So putting them behind a dome port is necessary to get the kind of wide angle coverage and characteristics that we need for underwater, but there's still some compromises involved. There are optical compromises, and that is especially noticeable in the corners. So even the sharpest rectilinear wide angle lens, which are the kind of lenses we're talking about here, the super wide but not necessarily fisheye, tend to have soft corners when used behind a dome port. um, because they are not designed, from the beginning for underwater use. The water contact optics lenses, on the other hand, were designed specifically for underwater use. In fact, they don't focus well above water for that reason. But there is no compromise in terms of corner sharpness. And you get much sharper corners, even at wider apertures, than you would with a conventional dry land lens behind a dome port. That's probably the biggest advantage. Although another very distinct advantage compared to typical rectilinear wide lenses used behind a dome port is close focusing ability. And as anyone who's serious about underwater photography knows, that's probably the most important of all considerations for quality in underwater imaging is proximity to the subject. The closer you get to the subject, the less water you have between lens and subject, the better the quality will be, all other things being the same. And with a typical rectilinear wide lens behind a dome port, maybe 10 inches or so is a pretty typical minimum focus distance. But with most of these water contact optics, you can focus right down to touching the glass. And of course, not all subjects will allow you to get that close, but there are plenty that will. And when you can get that close, the closer you get, the better the results will be. The sharper, the more colorful, because you have less water between the lens and the subject. Also, the colors tend to be brighter because the light has to travel a shorter path between the source of the light, being the strobe or the light video light, and the subject and the lens. So for both of those reasons, water contact optics I consider superior to the dry lens equivalent. And then you get the added advantage that with the wet lenses that we're talking about is that they are designed to be self-contained units underwater and therefore can be added and removed during the dive. So if you choose to dive in that way, you don't have to limit yourself to any one type of photography. You can readily switch between wide angle and macro and normal and back and forth during the same dive. And that does kind of beg the question of like, well, if you remove one of those lenses, what do you do with it then? Do you swim around with it in your hand or stick it in your pocket? Yeah, you could do that. But fortunately, that's the makers of these wet lenses also offer lens holders that mount on the strobe arms. And the lenses can be threaded on and off, which works well enough, but can be kind of tedious underwater. So a much better approach that is available is a bayonet mount system, which is much quicker and easier. Rather than fine threads, it's just big solid tabs that actually do the connection. And so in practice, all you do to attach the lens, for instance, is you just insert it into the adapter that lives on the housing's port. It inserts, turn it 90 degrees clockwise, click, it locks solidly in place. When it's time to remove it, switch to a different lens, you pull a release tab, rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, it comes off, and that's where you mount it on the lens holder that lives on your strobe arm. So you can readily switch back and forth between all three options on the same dive.
So, thanks, Mark, for the explanation. I think when it comes to the technical reason that the corners tend to be better, I can kind of explain it in a little bit of detail, but basically when you have a normal lens behind a dome port, the dome port creates a virtual image, and the virtual image is distorted like the dome port. It has barrel distortion, so it kind of curves. But the lens itself, often, especially with a kit lens like this, will not have the barrel distortion. So unless you're talking about a fisheye lens, which is why the corners are usually a little better for fisheye. So without the barrel distortion, it's mismatching the virtual image on the dome. So your camera's taking a photo of not the subject, but something in front of the subject, the virtual image, and it's getting distortion in the corners. Well, when you have water contact optics, your lens actually takes photos of the subject itself. So it's more like how it would take photos underwater. It's not perfect. I mean, above water. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And there were just a couple of photos I wanted to show you guys that I thought were really kind of showing the capability here. So one of them was way back here. This is one of my other favorites. And the reason I liked it is because I actually zoomed in with my my lens. So I was able to, I mean, if you look at some of these earlier shots here, you can see how small all the anthias are. Well, when I zoom in here, they look a lot bigger. So it's a different kind of perspective. And you can actually zoom your lens behind that that wide angle, the wide angle lens, and the anthias look bigger, but also there's a little bit more depth to the photo. So you have a little more blur with some of these subjects that are in front, like you can see this fish here, and you've got sharpness where the focal plane is. So it's a little bit more like taking a telephoto lens where you have a defined focal plane and the background is definitely different. And that just gives a little more depth to the image. It's a different kind of look. And it's really cool to have that versatility of being able to zoom in quite a bit.
Just
Now,
one comment on that
yeah,
that zooming capability. That is
yeah,
a great option if you chose a wet wide angle lens that allows for that. But that is where it's important to choose the right lens. And
right,
there wet wide angle lenses can be divided into those that are zoom through lenses or that do allow zooming without losing significant quality versus those that they can all be zoomed just because you're just zooming the kit lens, but those that are not considered zoom through, which are typically less expensive,
right.
you do lose significant quality in that. So
Yeah.
there's about a $300 price difference within the, say, for the Fantasy or AOI lens line between those that are considered zoom through and those that are not.
Yeah, that's fair. Do any of you know if that Enon lens that we have listed on the website with it is that zoom through capable?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have to check on that. We'll write it on the website, or if any of you guys are interested in the Enon version of the wet lens, feel free to just comment below, and we'll let you know if it's zoom through capable. The fantasy lens though definitely is, and that's what I was shooting.
That's it. Yeah, the WL09F
Yeah,
and the UWL09 Pro,
yeah,
whereas the UWL 400Q
yeah.
is still an excellent lens optically, but it does not allow that zoom through. And most of the time, you're not going to want to zoom because the whole point in having wide angle on there is you want that wide angle of view. But another situation, other than for creative purposes, as Nirupam illustrated there, another situation where you might want that zoom through capability. Let's say that you're all set up doing wide angle scenic shots and you want it to be as wide as possible, but then along comes a shark or a grouper or barracuda or some kind of medium large fish that's close enough to be within photo range with the right lens. But if you shoot wide angle, it's going to look like a minnow and be very unimpressive. Now, of course, being wet lenses, you could remove the wide angle lens and go back to your kit lens, but by then the fish is probably gone. So in that scenario, it would be very convenient to be able to just zoom in, fill the frame with the individual fish, get your shot, and then zoom right back to wide angle.
Well, also especially because you can do that with just pressing a button. You don't need to even turn the zoom gear with this camera, right? Because it's a power
Right.
zoom, so you can custom set your button, hit your button, it'll just zoom right in. Um, Mark was talking about how close you can get to subjects and how much detail you can get. This is one photo where I was almost touching it. Don't touch it. I don't recommend that. Not condoning that, but if you get almost there, you can get quite a bit of detail in your image, and you can see that right here, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so I mean that's with a kit lens on the 16 on the A6700 and that wide angle lens, and I'm getting little lines on this soft coral. So it's pretty incredible. I mean the image quality is just phenomenal. Um, Another image that I wanted to show is this one. I don't know, it's one of my favorites. I just thought the lighting turned out really cool. The coral bommy here kind of stopped my strobe from lighting underneath. One of the things that I actually do, and then I did that here in this shot and this one as well, I'll actually put my strobe underneath the subject so I can get light coming from below. So that if you have a coral bommy that's overhanging, you don't get the shadow underneath. But sometimes that shadow really adds a large amount of contrast, and it kind of, frames the image really nicely.
Yeah.
And let me see. I think that cow was oh yeah, this is just Fiji. Yeah, that's my last photos. Oh, there we go. And maybe this is yeah, this might be the corrected one. Oh no, it's dark again. Yeah, that's the raw file. Cool. Well, anyway, that's my photos from Fiji. Yeah, like I said, we do workshops to Fiji every year. So if you guys are watching, we've got, let's see, every year we do a trip to Voli Voli, and sometimes with the Becca Lagoon, and then we also do the Naya, which is a liveaboard. So we do those as group trips, but we can also book anybody to any trip that they want to Fiji at no extra cost. It's a free service. Do you guys have anything else about the A6700 that you wanted to talk about?
Nirupam, could you just go into a little bit of detail on that integrated TTL converter?
Yeah, for sure. So the integrated TTL converter, it actually sits inside of the housing. I don't know if we have photos of it. Let me see if we do. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'll try to share the photos on our website. Maybe we do. Um, let's see here. Oh, Wayne, did you get an answer on the zoom through capability of
Yeah,
the?
yeah. Did you
Oh,
see that in the chat there?
yeah. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so the Enon UWL 95S is a zoom through lens. So
Oh, sweet.
that gives you a great option there. And
That's awesome.
yeah, that lens comes in at 385, so it's a great price point too.
So let me see if I can show this. It's really hard to show. So this does show the version with the TTL converter. The TTL converter is inside of the housing, and it usually sits on the like left side. It might be positioned differently, and it's kind of taped on. And you've got this hot shoe electronic connection that goes right into the top of that camera. It plugs into the TTL converter, and then the TTL converter plugs back um, into the bulkhead right here. So the bulkhead at the top is where you connect your sync cord to, and that connects directly to your strobes. And then you've got a direct electrical connection from your camera to your strobes, where your camera is actually telling your strobes what power to fire at. So it's really quite accurate. I mean, all those shots that you saw were all TTL. Now, it's the same TTL circuitry, but I was using the external converter. But having that extra TTL converter built into the housing, I mean, it's like a $300 value, just right there as part of the housing. So the fact that this housing and port system is $1,600 is it's really incredible, especially when it has a vacuum system, TTL converter tray. It's a great, really, economical combo. But you do have to use that TTL converter with Ikelite strobes, and that's an important consideration. You have to be, all in on Ikelite strobes. And Ikelite tends to have this philosophy where they really try to focus on engineering when it comes to lighting because that's what matters with photography. And I think it really shows in their strobe quality and their strobes. So the DS230s are on the higher end of strobes, and I was shooting that. But the DS160s Mark IIs are awesome. And they're only, they're about 20 to 30% less power, but they're still super effective for wide angle. So
Yeah,
when
Nirupam, in addition to the cost factor, the fact that you don't have the TTL converter hanging on the outside of the
yeah,
housing is great for the
small.
compactness of this unit as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that is really nice. And like I said before, if you don't want to use it, you just unplug it. So
Yeah.
you do still have to use that bulkhead, and you don't really have a choice. Like you could buy the fiber optic bulkhead and then install it yourself, but you only have one bulkhead, either for fiber optics or sync cords. So, but the fiber optic bulkhead also has space for two fiber optic cables, in case anyone was wondering. Cool. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I think that's pretty
Oh,
well covered.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah, I guess that's really it. I mean, if any of you guys have questions on Facebook, drop them in the comments below. On YouTube as well, we'll post this video on YouTube. Same thing, just put them in the comments. If you'd like to get this system, just feel free to email us at sales@bluewaterphotostore.com. You can also shop on our website, and we even have a chat box right on the bottom right here, where one of the guys on this call will answer you right away. Usually Henry. And
And
um, yeah,
could you go deeper on the fiber optic version? So the fiber optic version is just for manual, right? You can't have TTL with it.
yeah, I believe so. So Ikelite creates a fiber optic transmitter with TTL, but it's only for Canon. So this version of the housing only has a manual trigger, but basically you
Hmm.
can use it with any other strobe. A lot of Chinese strobes, like Kraken strobes, we find Scuba Lamp, those are all fiber optic only. So there's not that many that use sync cord. Actually, I think the Kraken 160s use sync cords as well. Um, but a lot of strobes and just the more modern way of shooting is to have fiber optic cables that you can't break, that you can't flood, that are outside of your housing and that they can stay wet. And so having that capability here is really cool. You do have to get a battery for it. It's usually like a coin cell battery, so it's not a huge deal. And that also plugs in directly to your camera. Um,
All right.
yeah, so same kind of connection there.
Sounds
Cool.
good.
Um, so I think our next topic, we haven't really decided yet. But I actually thought I had a good idea. Henry, do you still have like uh a lot of nice photos of surfing?
I do have some, yes,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
So do you want to do a topic on surf photography next time?
we can definitely. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
Sure.
think that'd be a cool topic. I don't know if any of you guys out there are interested, but it'll be different. Something else to talk about. We've got lots of surf housings that we never talk about. So,
Yeah,
I'll schedule that in for next time. If you guys want to join our next one, make sure you check out bluewateru.com and we'll have our next After Hours with Blue Water there. I'll be posting it on YouTube regularly as well. Um, so thanks everybody out there on Facebook and out, beyond. Uh, Thanks guys for joining, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys later. See you
yeah.
later.
Thanks, Nirupa.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye
Bye.
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 Yeah, bye.